Well, hello and welcome to the wacky world of AEW Dynamite reviews here on the MrWarrenHayes Show. Hello, I'm MrWarrenHayes. Welcome. I am inviting you into my humble podcasting abode, regardless of where that abode may be. Perhaps on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes or on your favorite podcast application. I appreciate you tremendously giving it a listen. And you know the drill, right? Likes and subscribes on YouTube, 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts, 5-star ratings on Spotify. Little things. Trust me, I know. You're like, oh, but it's so insignificant. No, it's not insignificant. It really does help the podcast grow tremendously. So if you want to do that, if you want to give me a little hand, that would be great. And by the way, if you're watching this on YouTube right now, I am currently taking part in a beta test of a new feature that YouTube is trying out right now. Quizzes on the video. And if you want to try out the quiz, there'll probably be a couple of questions. I'll figure it out. I have to do this after recording the video, so they'll probably be there. If you want to try out the quiz, head into the description just below, and you'll see the questions there, so you can answer them from there. And I'd love to hear what you think about them, because then I can provide that feedback back to the testing group and see what they do with it. But new little features like that, give it a try if you don't mind, and I appreciate it. I'd love to give YouTube some feedback, and it's fun that they reached out to me to do that. So let's respond in kind. So yes, so the questions are in the description of the video. Check those out. But we are going to start focusing on last night's edition of AEW Dynamite. What edition is that exactly? The October 25th edition of Dynamite. Today is October 26th. I'm recording this on Thursday, as we usually do. And this took place at the Liacouras Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 5,673 tickets distributed for the show. One of the better gates that AEW has had over the past few months for a Dynamite taping. This was very good. Notably, the last minute push to get people into the building. So, it would appear that AEW's desire to push more, to go harder with a local promotion, and from the grassroots to get people into the building. Maybe it's already paying dividends. It looks like it's already paying off. Tickets are discounted. There's so on and so forth. All of these things help, but ultimately, right? This is what the last minute pushes for tickets have been key to adding significant amounts of butts in seats for these shows. It was the case for Wrestle Dream. It was the case for for last week's Dynamite as well, and again this week paid off some good dividends. Again, are these earth-shattering numbers? No, but they are distinct improvements from the typical median of 3,500. This is a very good. This is a good number for AEW for Dynamite, where we've been over the past couple of months. So. Got to point that out. It's looking a little better. But as far as the show goes, did I think the show looked good? Listen, I'm a mixed bag on this show, to be perfectly transparent with you. I think there was, okay, was this a good Dynamite? I don't think so. Like, I don't think it was a good Dynamite, but I think there was, good stuff on it. But then I also think that I feel like it was such a mixed bag full of weird things at the same time. Like, I guess the best way to break it down is to actually go through the show bit by bit. But this is, I'm still feeling the same way I did after watching the show last night, where I'm like, I'm not even sure if I like the show, but I'm not even sure if it's a bad show, but I'm pretty sure it's a good show, but I don't think it's a bad show. I'm a little all over the place with this one. not unlike last night's Dynamite. It starts with a cold open with Renee Paquette, and straight into the frame walks in Maxwell Jacob Friedman, our AEW World Champion. He comes in to make a live call to Adam Cole, who picks up. He's finally got surgery, but before Adam can really say anything, Roderick Strong and the Kingdoms show up. It's the usual rigmarole. And here Roderick Strong says, look, we can stop pretending you're not behind the devil and the masked devil guy. And for the sake of their mutual friendship with Adam Cole, he says, I've got your back. I'll watch your back with Bullet Club tonight. And MJF is very dismissive. He pushes Roderick Strong away. And then he cuts a promo on Juice Robinson. No outright mention of the role of quarters. We're steering far away from the anti-Semitism. Your boy's instincts from a couple of collisions ago, when he being Juice Robinson, when he pulled out the ring to put it on his hand and use it on Christopher Daniels to say, look, I can knock a guy out with this TJ Maxx cheap ass ring, which he did on a collision before doing it on Dynamite. My instincts were right. They pivoted away from the quarters and decided to do the thing instead. Now, Max referenced it, but in a very oblique fashion. MJF said something to the effect that, you want to make me feel small, something to that effect. It clearly, hearkening back to the bullying story, but without outright mentioning the quarters, the flagrant anti-Semitism. We've been steered away from that for a while. So he cuts a good promo on Juice, and then the devil appears on screen with a television glitch, and look, I mean, this is not unlike I don't know how to feel about it. Like this is very sports entertaining. The hijacking of the feed by the devil. And everyone's like, who's the devil? Who's the devil? Well, who asked to get patched in here? Oh, but he hacked in. All right, sure. Not unlike, whatever they were trying to do with Mustafa Ali that one time, the hacking bit. We assumed it was Mustafa Ali, right? Back in WWE, but it's kind of hokey. Glitch in, glitch out. But, okay, cold open. Let's get it started. And we go right into the Dynamite Diamond Ring 2023 finals, where MJF successfully retained the big old ring against Juice Robinson. Not big of a surprise. Not much of a surprise there. And I enjoyed the match. I thought it was pretty good. Max was clearly ready for MJF and was hot. And it started off brutally, Max just going for him, starting to beat him up, then takes him to the outside and beats him up on the outside, tosses him over the commentary table and whatnot, and into the barricades, and Juice, well, he juices. We got ourselves a good old fashioned blade job by good old Juice Robinson, and the Guns get involved, which allow Juice to get in control. In the meantime, Jay White pops in on commentary as well. MJF does the kangaroo kick to, again, a tremendous reaction from the crowd. What do you want from me? Leg lariat by Juice Robinson. MJF pokes him in the eye, but then Robinson spits into MJF's eye. So there was a lot of eye. The eye is the groin of the face. Never forget that. Juice Robinson puts the ring on. MJF ducks Juice using it, but MJF has the Dynamite Diamond ring on himself. This is all happening while the Guns are distracting the referee, and he uses it on Juice he uses it on Juice and lands the Heat Seeker for the win, and he retains, as I mentioned, the Dynamite Diamond. I thought it was a good little match, good opener. I thought it was fun. But Now things after the match, this is where things start to get a little, a little spray painty. So the Guns beat down on MJF, right? Jay White gets to the ring. He abandons commentary after doing his spot. And they all beat down on MJF. So the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. You'd assume that at this point Billy Gunn would just be part of the Acclaimed, but apparently we still have to say the Acclaimed and Billy Gunn. Anyway, that trio makes the save. And the heels take a powder. Jay White has a microphone. He's at the top of the ramp, and he calls MJF out. And just cuts a promo on him. Then the Guns challenge MJF for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Championship at Full Gear. So I guess we're doing another Wembley where we're going to defend the titles mano y mano, mano y dos mano on the pre-show, and then have MJF have his main event then. I would assume, because MJF, of course, accepts to face them at Full Gear, and he also says, look, I haven't forgotten this challenge about the 8-man tag. If I win the 8-man tag, you give me my belt back, and he says all I need are partners. And then Roderick Strong with the Kingdom show up. I don't know where they appeared from, to be perfectly honest, but they appear, and Strong then offers MJF to join in the match. MJF turns him down, calling them mid-mic, mid-mat, and Roddy the Simp Strong. And then Max Caster, who's still in the ring, does his shtick. And continues the will they, won't they team up. I think at this point it's pretty clear. And then the segment comes to a close, or we thought, as MJF goes up the ramp, but then Kenny Omega's music hits, and Kenny Omega comes out to challenge Max to a match this Saturday, because he feels he needs an opportunity to at least, challenge for his streak, keep his streak as the longest reigning AEW champion alive. 3 days, bitch, as we go to break. And I'm sitting there and I was like, woo! That's a lot of stuff happening here. That's a lot of things happening at once here. And I probably would have spaced it out a little more. But in a very short period of time, we had, Jay White cut another promo on the champ because he's the challenger at the next pay-per-view, and you're like, okay. Then we had the Guns challenge for a title. We had Roderick Strong come out to continue that thing. We had the 8-man match that that had the Acclaimed and whatnot, and scissoring and all that bullshit. Because I'm keeping it very streamlined. But if we break things down a little bit, right? The guys in the Kingdom and Roderick Strong, like, they come out a bit out of nowhere, and it's very heavy-handed, because at the same time the Acclaimed are already in the ring. Like, do we need more of this, right? Like, did we need them to come out? Because and I don't know why the trigger wasn't pulled, like, right there. It's like, yes, okay, Max, let's just do it. And then everyone cheers. And that would have ended the segment on a really nice note at the same time. Little story progression for this one, like part of the angle, the overall angle that is building to the main event match at the pay-per-view. I think that would have wrapped everything up real nicely. Where things, but the whole thing was with the scissoring and whatnot is like, again, you guys know that all this stuff is not for me. I don't think the Acclaimed are as hot as they once were. I don't think it's look, I don't think as an act, I don't think they're as hot as they once were. I think it's getting a little long in the tooth. All this stuff with the scissoring and whatnot. But we get that out of the way, right? It's settled, it's done. And then we think it's all done, but then we have on top of that another layer, another extra layer of icing, where we have Kenny Omega coming out. And Kenny, look, God bless Kenny, right? But he wasn't in top form on this promo. Like, this was not like, I thought it was a very low energy, very odd promo. But then again, it connects with Kenny Omega's energy, where he's not like this super hype guy. And I think we because of everything that happened, I think if you really insisted on having this segment at the end of this, which I don't think you should have, we could have done this later on in the show, no problem. I think it needed to crank up the energy a little bit, right? I think Kenny should have addressed the crowd a little more. Like, what do you think, Philadelphia? Kind of thing. But Kenny was Kenny, and I mean, Kenny's fine. I love Kenny Omega. This promo wasn't it. I don't think it was, he wasn't necessarily in his top element here. So like, it went on too long with too much stuff, too many points in between, and too many story bumps that we're trying to tell at once. Did we need the Guns absolutely to challenge here? No, we didn't. Did we need Kenny to come out immediately? Like, what would have made the most sense to me is Jay White cutting his promo, and then MJF saying, I'm still looking for my tag team, my tag team partners for an 8-man tag. Let's do it next week, right? The Acclaimed are there, and you do your Acclaimed skit, and then Max just like, okay, he caves in and says, okay, fine, Caster, fine. And then everyone celebrates. And then the audience is happy and a big cheer. That would have been, and then later on you can do the Guns. We can even fucking do the Guns next week. Who cares? Who cares at this point, right? And you could have done Kenny Omega at any part of the show, at any given moment. You could have done that, bumping into Max like he did last week, right? Because again, Kenny was so low energy on this promo. Very weird promo. He was so low energy. I was like, well, okay, what is he trying to do? What is he trying to say? Anyway, busy segment, lots of stuff happening at once. And I don't want to say confusing because it's pro wrestling. It doesn't confuse me. But as I'm trying to consume things here, like basically, if we're going to use marketing terms here, your call to actions here are all over the place. You've got multiple call to actions, multiple things I should be interested in at once. And I don't think it was put together in a reasonably well executed package, if that makes sense. We get a Wardlow vignette where now he's actually cutting a promo talking about MJF and how he had to sit at home and how it got him to a dark place because he wasn't injured. He wasn't like sidelined because he had to rehab or whatever. He wasn't hurt. But because of that, he was in a dark place. Okay. Then we had Hook and Rob Van Dam defeating the Dark Order. Here we go. Look, again, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to tell you, Rob Van Dam in this type of spot in 2023, coming in, doing a lot of heavy lifting, to be honest, a lot more than Hook, and playing the hits and getting the people up on their feet and excited. I mean, this guy's a pro's pro. And you can tell Hook is having the time of his life doing this stuff with his dad's old buddies, right? Uncle Rob, like Taz said on commentary. You can tell he's having the time of his life. He even, commentary even pointed it out when they won at the end. Hook cracked a smile. And commentary's like, oh, we don't see him smile very often. I mean, it's great for him, right? You get a real deal showman like RVD, tremendous wrestler, but a guy who also knows how to perform for an audience at the same time. He's taking notes. You know, there's going to be a time, though, where we're going to have to, you know, take the bridle off of Hook and let him run, right? There's going to be a moment where, oh, he's still young, he's still green, will no longer be a relevant point of conversation. Am I jumping the gun here? Maybe a little bit, because he is still very young, but he's one of the younger guys who gets a lot of reps, as opposed to a lot of, you know, their greener talent that AEW has. He does get a lot of TV reps, and I think he's very comfortable in his role, and he's going to have to be put in the driver's seat at some point, you know, like legitimately. We're going to, you know, not necessarily hide behind tag team matches and so on and so forth. Yeah, this was fine. Look, I enjoyed a fun little match. Finishes with the 5-star frog splash. And John Silver runs right into a red rum. Yeah, I'm not calling it the Taz mission anymore. I'm giving Hook his props. We get a Toni Storm vignette during Picture in Picture where she sets up her match for Full Gear. It's fine. I find it easier for me, very personally. It's easier for me when there's Picture in Picture to focus on the in-ring, to focus on guys or gals wrestling, as opposed to people doing scripted bits. You know, like Sammy and the cue cards. I don't know. It doesn't register for me. So the Toni Storm stuff is not registering for me, especially since I think it's extremely heavy-handed. For all intents and purposes, she's winning the title back at Full Gear, right? I think this is, anyway. I don't know. I'm sure some of you listening to this right now found this to be quite amusing. I just, you know, in the meantime, I have like sports betting apps being flashed in my eyes. You know, not that I'm interested in them. It's just like the sensory overload is nuts. I don't know why. Like focusing on a pro wrestling match, there's no problem, and I can block out the stuff. But if I've got Tony doing bits, and then I have like, you know, you can bet just like in, you know, you can bet on sports or you know, casino apps. They're you know, there's legislation being passed in a lot of provinces in Canada allowing for these gambling applications to be readily available. So now during Dynamite on TSN2, there's all these ads. If you're Canadian, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You just get bombarded with sports betting applications and gambling, just outright, like Vegas Big Timer app.com, you know, or whatever the fuck it's called, you know. And there's, you know, it's flashy, it's loud, and for some reason I can zero in on two guys wrestling in a ring and completely ignore like flashing lights and slot machines and whatever the fuck. But Tony, no, it's like, feel like it's all complimentary. Anyway. When we get back, though, after this commercial, Tony Schiavone is in the ring, and he's got he invites Sting and Darby Allin to the ring. Sting says he's glad to be here, and he forgot to thank two people for his little speech last week. Of course, his best tag team partner of all time, Darby Allin. And he even turns to the audience and is like, "Oh, you thought I was going to say someone else, right?" Yeah, no, probably not, right? And he also wants to thank Tony Khan for making the phone call 4 years ago, or whenever the fuck it was, 4 years, right? And you know, giving them the chance to wrestle a little more. He said to grapple a little more is what he said. And Shivani, he puts over the fact, that 35 years ago, Sting had a tremendous match on TBS that, put him over and elevated wrestling on TBS, and it was a big deal for him. So he's putting all of this over, and we're here on TBS, and Tony Khan has a gift for our boy here, Sting, and that gift is none other than the Nature Boy, Ric Flair. And I am completely floored at this. And I'm like, oh shit, wait a second. Ric Flair coming in unfettered by the World Wrestling Entertainment Company with a live mic. I perk up a little bit. Now, we're going to get this out of the way. Full disclosure, just to be, well, it's not a full disclosure thing. What am I talking about? But, just to make sure it's not lost on me, I think it is tremendously ironic at this point that Tony Khan made a point of referring to Vince McMahon as, as a sex pest, in not so many words. And yet here we have Ric Flair on his television show. I'm just saying. But Ric Flair, it's tremendous, right? And as far as the surprise goes, I'm like, fuck, I'm floored. I can't believe what I'm seeing. Didn't expect that. Of course, you see everyone goes, oh, Flair needs a payday. Well, of course he does. And why wouldn't he? He's he's Ric Flair after all, for better, for worse. And, I guess he's not all that on good terms with WWE. Because, Paul Levesque is looking at this and he's rubbing his temples and he's going, oh my God, what the fuck? Why is he doing this? But you can understand why at the same time. Flair comes in and he talks about his history with Sting, talking about the first Clash of Champions opposite WrestleMania. And he's not only one of the greatest ever, but he's the nicest guy he's ever known. And he gets choked up. And I'm the one thing I did, why I'm shocked Ric Flair didn't start crying. Because when I saw him, he's going to come out, he's going to talk about the old days, and then he's going to start just like his, bawling his eyes out. I think, here's the thing. If you want to retire Sting, now, I'm trying to say too many things at once. Now, clearly, we talked about this last week, but we're going to bring this back up again. By setting a retirement date for Sting in stone, in time, next year, February, March 2024, whenever Revolution is going to take place, right? By setting that in stone, you are creating an event around your event, right? You're creating a milestone, something significant, right? So yes, this is designed to attract attention, to get people to buy tickets. Yes, because it's what promoters should do. And I'm sure everyone's okay with it. I'm sure everyone involved is going to make a lot of money. So I'm sure there's no issues with this. But now, when I see Ric Flair coming out to accompany this exit from pro wrestling from Sting, I'm feeling that Tony Khan is going to make this into a big deal. And if you want to make it a big deal, right, like he's doing, you have to bring in Ric Flair. If you want to do a proper, this is your career thing, a retrospective, you're like, yep, this is where we're at right now. This is everything that happened, not where we're at, but this is what happened. You have to bring Ric Flair if you're going to retire Sting. That's just how it goes. These two are absolutely intertwined. There is no Sting without Ric Flair, one would even argue. So it makes a lot of sense. So they're really, the point I'm trying to make, and I think I'm being a little, I think I'm being a little scattered here. It's the theme of the show, I guess. The point that I'm making is that clearly Tony Khan wants to make Sting's retirement a big deal. He wants to make it feel significant, and he wants to do it right by Sting. He wants to help him out in this, and I'm okay with that. Because look, differentiate whatever you feel personally about Ric Flair. Okay? Let's say, if we just go this very, if we go in this very objectively, right? Ric Flair is essential, crucial to the development of the career of Sting, the creation of his aura, his star power, becoming a top guy, becoming the icon, as we like to call him these days. Well, not just these days, it's been a while, but as he is now referred to as the icon, right? They're so intertwined. It's hard to skirt. I don't think you could skirt around it. Regardless, I know Ric Flair comes with his own baggage, his own set of problems. Sure, I get that. But if you want, from a historical perspective, a story you want to wrap up, you cannot say goodbye to Sting and not, have some form of Ric Flair involvement, referencing, so whatever you want to call it, right? It would be malpractice to do that. So basically, Flair wraps it up by saying, if you'll have me, I'll ride the wagon out with you. And I thought, all right, this is pretty cool. Ultimately, I'm like, this is what Sting wanted. From day one when Sting showed up, I was always like, look, the guy wants to go on in his own terms. This was absolutely clear. He doesn't want, he handed the reins over to Vince, and Vince fucked him up. Let's be honest. Vince completely botched Sting, and then he got to the point where it's like, I can't. He even referenced it last week. It's like, my retirement in 2015 left a bad taste in my mouth. So he wanted to go out on his own terms. He wanted to go out with his head held high, and this is what AEW is offering him. And I think it is complicated. No, wrong choice of words. It is very. It's absolutely apropos and okay and justified to give Sting a proper send-off from the business. Can discuss his Hall of Fame credentials all you want, but this guy was a guy. Is a guy. Anyway, just when you think this segment was already, I enjoyed it at this point. I was like, oh, this is fun. Nice surprise. I'm enjoying this. Ric Flair, AEW. This is all cool. But how could it get better? Christian Cage is the only way this could get better. And he does come out with Nick Wayne and Luchasaurus. He says Tony Khan is a billionaire, and this is the gift he wanted to give Sting: a suit, some gold chains, and a black liver. He says it's impressive that Flair is moving. It's impressive the way Flair is moving, like at Weekend in Bernie's. I don't see any puppeteering. So that's fantastic. And he says, look, I know Ric Flair's not dead, which is a funny line because Ric Flair is right there in the ring, right? I think that was very underappreciated because I think that was really funny. He says, no, hey, relax. I know Ric Flair's not dead. Sure, he's right fucking there. He also knows that there's no God because if there was, he would have died 20 years ago. And that, my friends, is what you call a roast. Wow. And I don't know if Ric Flair was finding it all that funny. And in my haunts, people were like, do you think he's going to mention Reed? Do you think he's going to mention Reed? I was like, oh, that'd be fucking dark. That would be really, really dark, and probably not. I wouldn't do that. Especially when Flair is very, he's a sensitive guy. It's his kid. I don't know. but they didn't. And this is still a tremendous roast. And Christian goes on, like, he's just great, gets the cheap sports heat, talking about the Phillies. Apparently the Phillies lost miserably. I don't know. Something to that effect. But he has this proposition, he says, Sting, you got this beautiful idea that you're going to be retired at Revolution, but I want you gone right now. And he said, there's 3 of them, him, Nick Wayne, and Luchasaurus. And he says, there's 2 of you. Because, Rick's not going to wrestle. There's Sting, Darby, find yourself a 3rd guy, and let's have ourselves a trio match at Full Gear. What he said Ric Flair is 1 super kick away from turning into dust or something to that effect. And so that's what we're edging for. And Sting lets out a dad joke about being allergic to jackasses, and they'll find a partner and they accept the challenge. We'll go right for it there, right? A little later on, we're going a little ahead in time, but that's fine. We'll just connect everything since we're talking about it. A little later on, Renee Paquette has Adam Copeland backstage. And she says, look, the guys are looking for a 3rd partner. Will you be the 3rd man, or do you still not want to fight Christian Cage? Adam Copeland says, no, I don't want to fight Christian. I don't want to do that. And then Darby Allin and Sting arrive, and they try to knock some sense into him. Sting is like, wake up, man. Listen, before it's too late, What are you doing? I had the blinders. People turned on me. Lex Luger, Flair. Look, Flair turned on Sting way too many times. Sting was a bit of a dummy, let's be honest. He really wanted to trust Flair. Either he really loved Rick, or he's a bit of a dummy. For all the times that Ric Flair turned on Sting, if I had $1, I'd have like $5. It's more something like. Anyway, you get the point. Because that's what everyone was saying, is like, oh, you don't want Copeland. They'll get Copeland in here, but then Copeland doesn't want to fight Christian. So you could see a dynamic in the trios where Christian is in the ring and Edge, Copeland doesn't want to go in. But here I am thinking, what about Great Muta? What if they get Kaiji Muto in here, right? Like Muto brought Sting over for his retirement bullshit with Darby, right? One of his, bye-bye, adios, muchachos matches. Are we getting Kaiji? We could get Kaiji Muto here. Do you think he'd turn down a payday, or is he too WWE pilled right now? Is he headlining WWE NXT Japan? I don't think so. I think Muto goes where the money is, regardless. So look, don't get me wrong. I think let's parse this out properly. Putting Kaiji Muto in a match does not mean suddenly like, we're going to get a tremendous wrestling match. No. Muto, he's barely mobile. He gets gassed in a second. But in a 6-man situation, you can smoke and mirror this bullshit and he'll look like $1 million and that's fine. But it's not going to suddenly turn into this work rate spectacular. But as I mentioned previously, if Tony Khan is serious about making this final run a big deal for Sting, the Great Muta Sting connection is there. It's very real. Why not kick it off that way? It'd work for me. And Kaiji Muto would have, finessed his way into another booking. That's fine. So I don't know. Like I know that there's ways to get Copeland into the match, but I don't know. Look, this was probably my highlight of the show as far as non-wrestling matches go. I think this was my non-wrestling segments. This was really the highlight. I really, really liked this segment that they had here. Add some importance to Sting's retirement, makes it feel bigger, makes it feel real. You know, when these tickets for Revolution are going to go on sale, it's going to interest a lot of people. There's going to be people who are going to go there just to see Sting for one last time in a ring. Like, this is what it's about. It's fine. You know, it's not, it's not, oh, they're exploiting it's not exploiting his retirement. This is wrestling. This is what it is. One of the biggest stars is, you know, finally officially stepping away, and he's going to have a proper goodbye. And there's a lot of circumstances that for a lot of big time wrestlers didn't have the opportunity to have this goodbye. Like, this is a privilege. It's a privilege for us as fans to be able to say goodbye to one of the greats, when in a lot of circumstances we never really had that chance. Sit down interview with Chris Jericho, helmed by Renee Paquette. They talk about powerhouse Will Hobbs destroying him. Jericho says, I don't even remember taking a beating like that. I think, you know, what hurts the most is my ego. And he says, maybe it's time for me to step a little back. Maybe, do I still have what it takes? Maybe it's time for me to step back. Maybe it is time for Chris Jericho to hit the old dusty trail and ride into the sunset. Or is it time to get even stronger and more intense? Because he's Chris effing Jericho. And he says, Don Callis has friends. Well, I got friends too. And some of those friends are even bigger than Hobbs. Okay. Not sure what that means. The Hung Bucks defeated the Hardys and Brother Zay to retain the Ring of Honor World Six-Man Tag Team titles. I enjoyed this a lot more than I expected, and a lot of it has to do with Brother Zay being the MVP of this match, flying all over the place, doing tornillos to the floor and all that. Like, he did some tremendous stuff. Hangman Adam Page got a really good hot tag. We even got a return of the silly string here. Brother Zay gets a sequence involved, and he launches off the back of Matt Hardy into a tremendous swanton to the floor, or a tope con hilo, I should say. Then we get a swanton by Jeff Hardy, but we get a buckshot lariat and the BTE trigger for the win. I mean, we're not cracking match of the years here. We're not going, hey, go out of your way to see this. But this was, I thought this over delivered. My expectations were much lower here, much, much lower. But the story here is after the match, we had Isaiah Swerve Scott. No one calls him that anymore, Warren. And Swerve Strickland show up, and he on the Tonytron, and it's a home invasion. He's at Hangman Adam Page's home. And I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. He's gonna have to take out the dog. Page's screaming wife. What about the baby? I'm like, here we go. But the house is empty, like completely empty. Like, there's no one there. The lights are off. Swerve just like walks in, and the worst thing he does is he tears up a drawing from on the fridge of the kid. One of these things that young parents think their kids are so talented about. He's like, tears it up, throws it away, and then at some point he reacts. He being Swerve, he goes, what? Like he heard something, and he takes the camera out of Prince Nana's hand, who's there with him and filming the whole thing. And then he goes into the baby's bedroom. He sets up the camera, and clearly he's in the baby's room, because he's there. You see an angle of the crib, but you never see the baby. And then he leaves, and then he's talking to the baby. Meanwhile, Adam Page is not watching this anymore. He took a powder. He hit the bricks. He's like, I gotta get an Uber that will drive me all the way back to my home Where does he live? Montana? Where does he live? Where do cowboys live? Montana? The Dakotas? Texas, yeah, but I'm sure, Wyoming. I feel like, Wyoming, Wyoming's I feel like that's where real cowboys are. It's just me. But look, he ends up there, and he ends up at the house, and he does it, and he talks to the kid and leaves him a t-shirt. I was excited for this, and I think a lot of us sort of saw this coming, that this could be a thing for Swerve to do, right? Sort of invade people in their personal spaces and just be, an asshole. And while I think Swerve's delivery here was great, he felt creepy, he felt evil, just a bad human, And you had Nana going, boss, we gotta go. We gotta get out of here. We're this is not funny anymore. But Swerve is like, no. I was waiting for this to amp. I was waiting for this to ramp up. I was waiting for him to do anything at all. Open a door and then reveal that he tied up his wife, something. I know we're getting a little grim here, but that, or at least he, forced her into this room, whatever. But I was waiting for something to get a little amped up, and we never got there. It was just like, it sort of reminded me of when Seth Rollins home invaded, what was it? It was Edge's place, right? And the worst thing he did was open up the fridge and take a sip of orange juice. And I was like, what the fuck? What kind of stupid home invasion is this? And I kind of feel the same way here. Despite the fact that Swerve, his performance, right? His execution was spotless because he's great. And I thought overall, I'm like, oh, is this all? And Hangman rushing home. Where was everyone? There was no one. No one was there. And if no one was there and they left the baby alone, because a lot of people with a lot of cope, a lot of people doing cope, they're like, well, we didn't see the baby, so maybe he was just monologuing. I'm like, dude, Swerve reacted to a sound he heard, then went into the kids' room and started talking to no one. Like, that feels out of character for Swerve. There's a lot of people trying to defend this and saying, no, this was excellent. It wasn't excellent. I thought it under-delivered. I thought it's a little disappointing, despite the fact that Swerve himself was fantastic. I think as a standalone segment, I was like, man, it lacked just a little something to put it over. A little something to push it over the top. Just a tiny wee thing. And it could have got dark with how, Swerve handled the AR Fox thing with Nick Wayne. It could have gotten dark. It felt a little tepid, disappointing, under-delivered. What's next? Where am I in my notes here? Okay, we have then we had the Adam Copeland thing, which leads us to the AEW Women's World Title match where Hikaru Shida defeated Ruby Soho. This was not good, guys, gals on Banner Pals. This was not a good match, and anyone who tries to tell you otherwise is grading on a curve. That's the only reasonable, soft explanation I can give you without seeing the argument and not letting that person be there to defend themselves if I started tearing into them. This was not a good match. I don't know what to tell you. Now, there's something that needs to be said here, is that, I've seen all the arguments, seen a lot of people complain about Ruby Soho and so on. A couple of weeks ago, Ruby Soho and Hikaru Shida had a very good match on Rampage. A very good match where I'm like, oh, this is pretty fun. This is actually pretty good. But is it an off night where something happened and, like Ruby oftentimes comes off as like if something flubs, it feels like the confidence then gets drained out of her and she can't get back into the groove. Like I feel after that, I feel like, that crossbody that Shida did is the complete mess. And I don't think the match ever recovered from that. This was not a good professional wrestling match, guys and gals, non-binary pals. And even if your favorites are in there, you can be objective and say, you know what, this was not their finest hour. This just wasn't it. I've got not much to add to that, but anyone who's telling you, look, it's either one of two things. If someone tells you, no, they had a good match, they had a great match, because I've even seen that, it's two things. One, they're grading on a curve, or two, they're lying to you. And I would never lie to you, my A+ audience, ever. I try to steer you down the right path as much as possible. I would never lie to you. Renee Paquette is with MJF in the trainer's room. And he starts up a promo, but gets interrupted by Samoa Joe, who says, look, you're out of friends, pal. And if you need a friend, I've got your back, but you have to promise me a shot at your world title. Okay. Look, and this makes sense, right? Because Joe shook MJF's hand after their match at, I was going to say Shea Stadium, at Arthur Ashe. So, there's, I think Joe respected MJF for doing whatever needed to be done to win the match, right? I think that's, so clearly here it's the same thing, but he's not going to become his friend. It's going to be, I'm going to be on your side via opportunity. So I like it. More Joe on this. More Joe, less fucking, 6 angles at once. And finally, you had the main event where the Blackpool Combat Club duo of Bryan Danielson and Claudio Castagnoli defeated Kazuchika, Okada, and Orange Cassidy, with Cassidy taking the pin by Claudio. Look, this ruled. This was tremendous. What a great way to end the show. Shock and awe. Surprise, surprise. Top tier world-class athletes in your main event. And what do you get? You get a fantastic match to wrap up your television, your weekly television wrestling show. Just great stuff. Just fantastic stuff. And they're continuing the story between Okada and Danielson. We're not quite done here yet. Where Okada's there and he wants to fight Danielson. Danielson is like, this guy broke my arm. He's a little weary, right? When finally Danielson and Okada have to meet in the tag team match, first of all, big pop from the audience, from them just being across from each other. And Danielson is a little unsure. He's like, this motherfucker hurt me. He took me out. And this would play on a little later on in the match. But, Orange Cassidy is surrounded by, a bunch of the greatest to ever do it. Like, inarguably, in this match, there were two of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. There's Claudio Castagnoli, who's right up there. Like, I think it's a question of accolades in big matches that are holding Claudio back from being in a conversation alongside guys like Danielson and Okada, right? And I don't want to mean this in a diminishing way, because Claudio's great. Claudio is tremendous, and we've known this for years, right? I just think, wallowing on the mid-card in WWE for so long, and then so on and so forth. And I think ultimately it does take away some shine. Whereas Danielson is one of the greatest to ever do it and has all these tremendous matches behind his belt. Okada is one of the greatest IWGP world champions of all time. Heavyweight champions, I should say. So, it's like, and Cassidy's in there and he's mixing it up with these high level athletes without a care in the world. Well, without a care in the world, he cares and he's delivering and he looks fantastic. He doesn't look out of place. He looks tremendous. Washed away whatever the fuck he did at the Battle of the Belts this weekend, which was bad. He's in there with the best, so it brings out the best in him. And you know what? I really enjoyed seeing Claudio Castagnoli and Kazuchika Okada again across from each other, because they did the trios match. What was it, back in June? Right at the in New Japan, they had Mox and Shota Umino and Claudio against Okada, Tanahashi, and Ishii. All this was tremendous. And I'm sitting there, wrestling's so fucking cool. Wrestling's so cool. I love every minute of this. And the crowd was eating them. And the great Philadelphia crowd, by the way. They weren't into the women's match at all. I wouldn't say at all. But they really, as opposed to everything else, they really weren't into it. But they were into this match here. They were into Kazuchika Okada no selling Bryan Danielson chops, right? And I found Okada had a little pep in his step in this. You know, our boy Kazu knows his spot, knows his place, and you know, I don't want to get into a New Japan diatribe here, but you know, yes, he's the guy, he's the final boss, he's, you know, Kazuchika Okada. But what is there left for him to do? Like, I'm sure this is something he has in his mind constantly, where it's like, look, I'm fighting all the same guys. We're doing the same matches. I get it, you know, and I'm on top of the world, and, you know, I'm the guy. I am the guy of the company, right? And he gets that. He understands that. So at some point, you know, hey, why don't you come overseas? Come and wrestle, you know, a couple of guys that you don't have the opportunity to wrestle very often. And different energy of the crowd, different spot. Sometimes Okada in Japan, you can tell, like, you know, sometimes it takes him a while to get his groove on, and he's methodical. He's very, very methodical in how he plans out his matches and whatnot, you know. But here, again, a little pep in his step. There was a little firecracker that was lit here. Wish it was like that. Wish it was like that all the time in Japan. But look, I really thought this. I thought the final stretch of this match was tremendous. I really loved, you know, Okada doing the Rainmaker pose. Fucking AEW production got it, right? He does the Rainmaker pose with the camera, and he's standing there. And Orange Cassidy, right, like a and I'm like a trained animal, like, you know, like your favorite dog, you know, when you go like this, you go to your doggy, and your doggy just comes over because he sees you arms outstretched. He's, oh, I'm gonna get a hug, you know. Orange Cassidy, like almost like on reflex. It's like, oh, it's hug time, and he comes in and he hugs Okada. And Okada goes, okay. I thought it was like a little something. A little fun little comedy spot that didn't take away from anything else. Claudio Castagnoli catches an orange punch into the big swing, which was also tremendous. There's this great sequence between Claudio and Orange Cassidy, right? Where they were in and out of stuff, and it ends with a Stun Dog Millionaire. It's just great stuff. Elbow drop by Kazuchika Okada. He lands a Rainmaker, but Claudio is able to catch Orange Cassidy with a pop-up uppercut. European uppercut. He's dead. Don't get up from that. So that was cool. Claudio Castagnoli gets the win, and then immediately after, Tony Khan has told us we're getting Orange Cassidy versus Claudio Castagnoli for the international title next week. I'm like, perfect, dope. And it's continuing this feud that Cassidy has with Mox via proxy of the BCC guys. You know, the more you think about it, the more Orange Cassidy has beef with all these guys, or at least most of them. I'm not sure about Danielson, right? But Wheeler Yuta, right? John Moxley, right? But Claudio, right? You know, there was the whole thing at the last Ring of Honor pay-per-view Was it Super Card of Honor? I'm terrible with I am really terrible when it comes to the Ring of Honor pay-per-view names. But, where they had, Cassidy has beef with all these guys, essentially. And Danielson is selling his chin because of the Rainmaker. He's like, ah. Then, doctors come and check on him, and everyone comes and checks on him, and then it gets really tense. And then the best friends come out, and Rocky Romero, and Hook comes out as well, because he's Orange Cassidy's friend. So you have all the, I guess the North American contingent of chaos that's there, plus Hook, and the rest of the BCC, and there's this standoff. And then I saw some of the concerned police, the concerned trolls are like, oh, look, they heard Danielson again. Bryan Danielson's such a good seller. And I think this is the story they're telling, right? It's like Okada, every time he fights Danielson, he ends up hurting him, injuring him. He doesn't want, and that'll probably piss him off. Is this what we're getting at Wrestle Kingdom? Is this where we're heading down? Is this the road we're heading down? Or are we sending the BCC for the trios titles, right? The 6-man titles, because Okada is still 1/3 of that. I don't know. I thought we were starting to angle towards Danielson versus Zack Sabre Jr. But looks like the Okada thing, we might repivot towards that. Because it was clear that, Okada was still in the ring and was staring down Danielson and was like, okay, we're not done here. It was a very New Japan way of ending the show. A little awkward, not gonna lie. No music, nothing going on. I guess the segment went a little short because commentary felt like they were scrambling for things to say, and give me the nitro schmaz at the end. Let's end with some real chaos, not just the faction. Some real chaos. Tape machines are still rolling, etc., etc. So an awkward finish to Dynamite, but a good main event to cap it off on a show that was trying stuff out and just all over and look, it's always the same. Dynamite is at its best. AEW is at its best when it focuses on the wrestling. When it focuses on pro wrestling, there's nothing that even comes close to it. Nothing touches this show. Nothing. When we start getting cutesy, when we start trying to do things and trying to weave all these angles into one big segment and trying to make it up, that's where it slips up. That's where it starts to, that's where there's cracks. Focus on what works. And what works for this company is wrestling and, simple wrestling angles because they have the talent to pull it off. Be sure to subscribe and join the channel and here on youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes, or make sure that you subscribe to the channel on your favorite podcast application. Well, to the podcast, I should say, on your favorite podcast application, because that's what I'm going to be. That's where I'll be there. Be right there. And by the way, this Saturday on the YouTube channel, I'm doing a little something special for Halloween. I'm going to be streaming some live video gameplay, of videos with video gameplay of me playing The Quarry, an 80s teen slasher flick horror game. I'm going to be trying that out on YouTube this weekend, this Saturday. So if you want to check that out, completely unrelated to wrestling, just wanted to do something fun for Halloween. youtube.com/MrWarrenHayes if you're into that. Maybe you're not into that, and that's fine. Like I said, I'll be back on Sunday for the Collision review, back on Tuesday to record the Mr. Warren Hayes Show live on YouTube. In the meantime, I hope you have a great rest of your week, and I'll see you next time.